Triple E EDC back again with another knife video. This is the CJRB Feldspar. Now, this is a review sort of a long time coming, and it took a little bit longer than I thought to get to it, but we're going to go ahead and cover it now. So this is the 3.5-inch Feldspar. This does come in both a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch Feldspar. Now, this was the first Micarta version to come out. There's G10 versions, and there are other types of Micarta versions. So the G10 versions comes in sort of a rainbow of colors. They are flat scales, so just be aware of that. These Micarta scales are contoured, which is an upgrade. Also, I believe the steel on this one is D2, and I'm not sure about the other ones. I think they might be, no, the other ones are D2 as well. It's just the Micarta is the big difference, and what accounts for the difference in price. Now, there is a Knife Center exclusive that came out recently of the Feldspar, and that one is in burlap micarta. So if you're interested in burlap micarta, I would go ahead and check that one out. One of the reasons I'm doing this review now, especially since this one is sold out, is because that version is available, and I figured people might be looking at it. So let's go ahead and talk about this knife. Let's do some size comparisons, and we'll get right into it. So first of all, this is the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. And the Spyderco Para 3. As you can see, this is sort of an in-between size. The blade is very similar in length to the Paramilitary 2, but the handle is much shorter. One of the complaints, of course, of the Paramilitary 2 is the handle to blade ratio being off. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Benchmade Freak and the Benchmade Griptilian. So the Griptilian is a little bit shorter in the blade and a little bit longer in the handle, while the Freak is pretty much the same size in the blade and a little bit longer in the handle. The perspective is a little bit off because the camera's at an angle, so I'll go ahead and switch them so you can see what I'm talking about. But take my word for it. And let's go ahead and do a Benchmade 940, a little bit shorter in the blade, shorter in the handle. Benchmade Bugout, since it's very common. Bestech Texel, since it's in the same price range. And let's go ahead and do a Spyderco Tenacious, another budget option. And let's see, oh, and just for perspective, I'm going to put the Tenacious here because a lot of people have the Tenacious as well. And last but not least, probably the knife that it's going to get compared to the most, the CJRB Centros. So I believe these are both Dylan Mallory designs. This might even say it on here. No, it doesn't say it on here. But I believe these are both Dylan Mallory designs. This one is Mallory, that's his symbol. As his maker's mark, I should say. Could be that this isn't, but I thought I read somewhere that this was. Either way, they're very similar designs. And these are pretty much the same size overall. The blades are the same size. The handle is a little bit longer on the Centros than on the Feldspar. And the real difference here is going to be on, well, there's a couple differences, and we'll cover those in this video. So let's go ahead and talk first about the Feldspar, because this is not a video about the Centros, it's a video about the Feldspar. So the Feldspar has, let's talk about the good. The Feldspar has an excellent blade shape here. The blade is, it has a little bit of flat right here, followed by a good amount of belly. Now this is a great shape for EDC. Those of you who've watched my other videos know that I compared this blade, I put this blade up against the Spyderco Spidey Chef, which a lot of people love as an EDC, and the blade shapes were basically the same. I'm going to go ahead and do that here so you can see that the same sort of curvature is present here, even though the sizes are a little bit different. So if you like the shape of the Spidey Chef and you agree that it is a great EDC blade shape, then you will like this. That's not to say that this is the same as the Spidey Chef, but the blade shape is very similar. That being said, this does have a flat up here. The Spidey Chef is a full flat grind, but this does cut very well nonetheless. This has a very pointy edge. It's almost like a spear point, but not quite. The CJRB Centros is more of a spear point. But this is almost like a spear point, and therefore it has a great penetrating tip that you can use for getting into packages, getting into any type of penetrating cut that you need to do. It's just a great penetrating knife because of the fact that it has that tip. It also has sort of a quick taper tang, or spine, I should say. If you look at it here, it's consistent over here, and then it tapers quickly off to a point. That means that this is going to be a fairly strong point for penetrating, which is also good. The edge on it is a very good edge and decently thin for the stock size, as you can see here, but it's stout enough to do most of the stout tasks you're going to need to do on an everyday carry type of basis. The steel on this is D2. CJRB does D2 actually pretty well, and so I'm very happy with the heat treat so far on this. Performs very, very well, and I've had no issues whatsoever. D2, of course, is it's become sort of a standard in the budget world as a steel, but it has good edge holding. It has, when I say good, I would say above average edge holding. It has the decent corrosion resistance. Sorry, lost my train of thought there, guys. Decent corrosion resistance, but it's not quite stainless. So it's not one of the stainless steels, but it's not quite corrosion prone either. So it's good in that regard as well. And it's decently tough for what it is and not so bad to sharpen. So good budget steel here. Another good thing about this is the price. The price is really an amazing thing about this. So the Feldspar, the base Feldspar in G10, the flat G10 is $35. That is a steal of a deal. Now that being said, the Micarta version, this is a green canvas Micarta. This was like, I believe it was about 52 or 56. I don't remember exactly. I think it might, let's go ahead and say it's 56 just to be on the safe side. And is it worth that extra $20? In my mind, it is. Even though you could buy potentially almost two CJRBs for this in G10, the contouring on this handle makes such a big difference in the handle feel that I believe it makes it worth it. And so I would say even at $56, this would be an absolute steal. And frankly, the Knife Center exclusive in burlap micarta is also going to be, I believe, contoured as well, and is around I believe it's that same price. And therefore, if you like burlap micarta, that is going to be a steal as well. So I haven't held one of those, but going off of this, I would have to say that would be a steal. Another great thing about this is the action on this is superb. As you can see, this is really a drop shut ball bearing action. CJRB does great with this, and they're actually a little bit better than Civivi on the actions. And the liner locks feel a little bit more substantial on CJRB than they do on Civivi, which is surprising. That says a lot about what CJRB is doing and Artisan Cutlery, their parent company in general. So that's great. Another good thing I like about this knife is the micarta is nice and textured. If you like a slick micarta, kind of like or a grippy, sort of not rough micarta, like a TRM Atom, for example, this is not that. This is a rough micarta. It is, you can hear it. It's a rough micarta. And if you like that rugged micarta, this is great. Absolutely great micarta. And it feels good in the hand. Like I said, it's nice and grippy, and very happy with the micarta overall. The handle shape is very ergonomic on this. I would say the ergos on this probably are a good 8.5 out of 10. Like a really good ergonomics on this. So you have a nice swell right here, which is Very nice. There's enough thickness here, but you know, I could maybe do with a little bit more. But otherwise, this feels great in the hand. You can choke up very well on here. There is no jimping, so just be aware of that. But otherwise, you get a nice lockup right there. So that's great. Another thing I like about this knife is the cutouts here for the clip. So that means the clip is flush, and the screws here are countersunk. So there is no screws sticking up here. This is a budget knife. That is a detail on a budget knife that you just don't see very often. That is beautiful. I'm impressed, honestly, very impressed. Lanyard holes out of the way, which is another good thing, and you also got these brass spacers here that are quite nice as well. Deep carry clip here is one of the better budget deep carry clips. It's nice and, I mean, it's stainless steel, but it's nice and polished and thick enough that it's quite nice. To give you an idea, this is the ProTech Malibu, and this is like a $700 knife, okay? Check out the clips. Now, I'm not saying that they're the same, but that's a good value, you know, on clip design when you're dealing with a $56 knife. So that's a great thing as well. Let's go ahead and talk about the bad. So what's the bad on this? Honestly, there's not a ton of bad on this. I guess the most bad I would have to say is, you know, I think they could have been more imaginative with the pivot. The pivot is just a standard pivot with a pivot collar. Pivot collar is, you know, brass, matches that, but doesn't really have any, you know, overall theme on the knife. The billboarding on CJRB is a little bit much, but that's sort of par for the course with CJRB. The thumb stud action on here is good, so I'm not worried about that. I guess I could complain about the lack of jimping up here, which I do miss a little bit. And the other thing I would say is that the choil here is not really a usable choil. I don't think it's meant to be a finger choil. I think it's meant to just be a sharpening choil, but it feels like it should be a finger choil, and it's not really usable. And it could have been, and that's sort of a missed opportunity. So I guess those are all the bad on this. There's not really a whole lot of bad. Now let's talk about the comparison here with the CJRB Centros. So these are going to be the same price, right? Same price, same company, same materials. So, you know, there's not really a ton of differences here, except, you know, for example, some of the details like the countersunk screws and the recessed pocket clip. It doesn't exist on this one. That being said, there's other features like the lanyard holes in here, and that rotates around. And the blade shape is a little bit more, you know, more of a spear point, more for piercing, and you get a little bit more consistent, you know, curve all the way up. So I'm going to tell you, as much as I'm gushing about this, I like this better. The CJRB Centros I do like better. Why do I like it better? Well, a couple things. One is this reminds me a lot of like the 940 in hand, and I like the way the 940 feels in hand. It's sort of like got that skinny neutral handle and just works very well in hand that way. It reminds me of that a lot, and then also has this sort of hump here where it makes me feel like my front three fingers are locked in, and then I've got the last finger there, and then I've got good jimping here, and I'm locked in. So one of the reasons I like it better is the jimping on here is nicer. I think the blade shape, honestly, offers a little bit more utility than this blade shape. That might be a personal preference thing. So there are some details, like I said, that are better on the Feldspar. Also, as unimaginative as the pivot is here, you know, you can see this one is a bare pivot, right? And then you've got the brass spacers here and the silver here, so that's not as tied together. So I do think that the Feldspar is a little bit more refined, but just as an everyday user, I prefer the Centros. It just feels great in hand. I find that this blade shape is a little bit more useful for a lot of the everyday tasks that I do. You know, cutting up boxes, you know, needing to pierce through packaging and things like that. You know, so I prefer the Centros. But that being said, this is one of the very best budget knives on the market. I'm talking top 5, possibly even top 3. And I'll do a full, you know, best budget knives on the market. But honestly, this is so far my favorite budget knife on the market, the Centros. It's probably 1 and 1A with the Civivi Praxis, but this is such a good knife, and, you know, this gives it stiff competition. So I'm going to very, very highly recommend the Feldspar. I like it quite a bit. But I'm not going to go so far as some of the other reviewers to say it's better than Centros, because I like the Centros better. Hope this has been helpful, guys. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get all my content. Also, hit the like button and drop a comment below. Let me know if you prefer the CJRB Centros or the Feldspar and why. Thanks so much.